Silent Separation, Chapter 5, Reminiscence. For the next few days, Mosheng continuously traveled to take pictures so that she did not hear more about the interview with Tao Yichen. She had already spoke to Lao Bei to change jobs so she would not have anything to do with it. The shooting completed relatively smoothly that day, till Mosheng returned to the office rather early. When she was washing her hands in the sink, she was pulled aside by Amin and several female colleagues to gossip. "Shin, your elite man's interview might not go through." "Why?" "Tao Yichen did not even get to meet her famous subject, and she was rejected immediately. She is made a laughingstock now. Initially, she talked with so much arrogance, but is now humiliated." Amin's tone sounded a little like she was rejoicing in other people's misfortune. "Yes, I also heard that she called the law firm, but it was answered by his assistant, who gave the excuse that Loi He is sick." "Sick?" Initially, Mosheng was about to walk out, but when she heard those words, she stopped walking. "Is it true?" "It is certainly false. I saw him on a TV program yesterday." Such program was usually recorded in advance. So was Yichen really sick? Mosheng still felt uneasy while sitting in the office. Then she laughed at herself. "Zhao Mosheng, in what capacity can you show concern for him now?" Mosheng ridiculed herself over and over again. "Shin, you have a phone call." Lao Bei transferred her call to her. "This person seems to have called twice in the morning." "I will answer it." Mosheng picked up the phone. "Hello, how are you?" "Are you Zhao Mosheng?" The gentle voice of a man echoed from the other end of the phone. "I am Xin-he." Mosheng met up with Xin-he in a cafe called Silent World, which is situated in the eastern side of the city. After briefly greeting each other, Xin-he said, "It is not easy to look for you, but luckily Yichen mentioned you work as a photographer and a magazine publisher." Seeing Mosheng looking at him with a stunned face, Xin-he smiled. "What kind of expression is that? Is it very strange for Yichen to mention about you?" Actually, Yichen did not say anything, but it was Lao Yun, a middle-aged gossip man. Hence, a bit of information was dug up. For some reason, Xin-he became uncomfortable. The waiter came and handed them the menu. After ordering their drinks, Xin-he started to talk about the main topic. "You probably feel very strange that I asked you to come out." Indeed, very strange. Although Mosheng knew this elegant and polite man in front of her, he was not a close friend. For a very long time, her impression of him was just as Yichen's roommate. She did not even remember his name clearly, until one day she followed people from his dormitory to eat hot pot. It was a must to bring a partner to the gathering. In the end, only Xin-he came along. There was a person who teased him by saying, "Xin-he, even he Yichen is taken. How long do you want to remain single?" Xin-he sighed and said, "It is easy for you to say, but where do I find a courteous and indomitable Zhao Mosheng to take me?" Xin-he glanced at Mosheng and said it in jest. Unfortunately, Yichen made the situation worse by saying, "If you want, then I will give her to you so my life can be more quiet." She was sitting beside him and felt sorry for herself. She did not even say anything. Yet a disaster descended from heaven, an unexpected adversity. This group of people was from the Faculty of Law, all of them infamous for their poisonous tongues. Thereafter, she remembered Xin-he. Seeing Mosheng a little dazed, Xin-he suddenly spoke up. "Actually, I've always been puzzled why you could become Yichen's girlfriend during the university days. You should know back then, there were many girls who were prettier, smarter, and more outstanding than you that also liked Yichen." Mosheng did not know why he suddenly mentioned about the past, so she remained quiet and listened to what else he had to say. He started to reminiscence. At that time, one of the entertainment in our dormitory was to gamble on which girls would eventually be able to get Yichen. One night after the lights were off, we started to gamble noisily again. Someone bet on one of the prettiest girls in our faculty. Someone else bet on a talented girl who took part in the debate competition with Yichen. And I think I bet on a girl from the Faculty of Foreign Language. He smiled and recalled the fabulous days of being young. Yichen always implemented a three don'ts policy in this kind of activities, which were don't approve, don't pay attention, and don't participate. He would read his books, sleep, and let us make jokes and noises. However, one time, after we put our bets together, he suddenly said, "I bet on Zhao Mosheng." Shinher looked at Mosheng. "That was the first time I heard your name." That was the reason why afterward someone started to spread around that she was his girlfriend. Yichen never mentioned this to her. You can imagine how curious we were about you. Later, we were even more surprised when we met you. Yichen always had a steadiness and calmness beyond his age. In our impression, his girlfriend should always be mature and sensible. But you, Shinher said implicitly, were not what we expect. Honestly speaking, in the beginning, I was not optimistic about your relationship. But gradually, Yichen was just like any normal 20-year-old big boy. He often was mad because of you. He also could be so happy and would do what we asked. He even washed everybody's clothes in the dormitory. That happened on his birthday. These kinds of things happen to Yichen. It is unbelievable. On the day of Yichen's birthday, Mosheng had searched throughout the city, and yet she could not find a satisfying gift to buy. As a result, she could only appear at 10-something that night, looking dead tired at the downstairs of his dormitory, only to wish him happy birthday empty-handed. Yichen asked her with a straight face, "Where did you go today, and where is my present?" Naturally, she could not produce a present. Yichen fiercely glared at her for a long time, and finally said in defeat, "Forget about it. Close your eyes." She closed her eyes, and then he bent down and kissed her. It was their first kiss. She could still remember after she opens her eyes, she foolishly asked him, "Yichen, but today is not to celebrate my birthday." Mosheng's hand holding the coffee cup shook a bit, and she put it back on the table. Why did this man want to mention so many things of the past? Could he stop talking? "The matter you said I need to know is this," she interrupted him. Shinher paused. His face had turned pale. He looked at her for a long while and slowly shook his head. "Zhao Mosheng, you are really too cruel." "Yes, she can be cruel to everyone." Shinher stopped talking. He took out a pen and paper to write 2 lines and then handed it to her. Mosheng took the paper with the name of a hospital and watch number written on it. "What is this?" With his working style, premature death is not surprising, not to mention the unimportant stomach bleeding. Shinher's voice was always mild and gentle, but now had turned cold. "I've given you the address of the hospital. Whether to go or not is your business. I do not know what happened between the both of you. But Zhao Mosheng," his voice was full of condemnation, "a person cannot be too selfish." After finishing talking, he paid the bills and left. Mosheng sat there, shocked by this piece of news. She tightly squashed the piece of paper in her hand into a ball. Although her fingernails were not long, it was still quite painful when they pierced into the flesh. But she was not aware. Stomach bleeding? Hospital? Yichen. Because of her? Indeed, because of her? The coffee was already cold. Mosheng pushed open the door of the cafe, and she did not know when it started to rain outside. How could it rain at this time? In particular, it was a heavy downpour. Surprisingly, she managed to flag down a taxi easily. The taxi driver was someone too enthusiastic. After hearing where she wanted to go, he began to constantly asking questions. "Miss, is your friend sick? Miss, are you still studying or working? Miss. Mosheng gave very short reply and looked out the taxi's window. What the driver said fell on dead ear since she did not pay attention. The outside scenery one by one flashed before her eyes, but she did not see anything. Surprisingly, there was no red traffic light along the way, so she arrived at the hospital very quickly. She also found Yichen's ward very easily. When she was standing in front of the door, her hands felt very heavy. She could not lift her hand to knock. But should she leave, her legs also felt very heavy. She could not lift her legs to move. There was one moment she actually thought that she would stand there forever, dare not get close, but also could not bear to leave. Even when the universe is flooded, the sea runs dry, and the stone goes soft, Until the end of time, she will forever stand outside his door. But how could there be a forever? If it was meant to come, it would eventually come, no matter what a person would do to avoid it. The door was pulled open from the inside, but she was not able to dodge it on time, so she stood facing that person. Yi Mei. There are people we are destined to meet. Moreover, the reasons are always the same, such as Yi Mei and her. Mushan always wondered, how did this gentle as water and exclusive as poultry girl felt when the man she loved introduced her to others. This is my little sister. At that time, she was thick-skinned and introduced herself. I'm your brother's girlfriend. Yichen did not refute, so how painful it must have been for her. She saw her and actually smiled gently at her. How much unknown sorrow and grief behind that smiled. Yi Mei? Long time no see. Mushan, finally meeting you again. Yes, finally. Are you here to visit Yichen? Yi Mei asked. He just fell asleep. If you have time, can you accommodate me to his house? I want to help him get some daily necessities. Mushan hesitated for a moment and then nodded her head. Okay. He is all right? Yes. The doctor said all is well, as long as there is plenty of rest and to pay attention to his diet. That's good, Mushan said in a low voice. They talked about their current situation while on the way to Yichen's house. Yi Mei said, Actually, I wanted to look for you earlier, but suddenly my company sent me traveling, so I've been very busy. It's not easy for me to make a trip back, but Yichen suddenly fell ill. I finally experienced the suffering of a career woman. Mushan simply replied, I did not expect you to become a successful career woman. Aren't you also the same? At that time, you would use your camera to simply take pictures of anything. I did not expect you to become a photographer. Mushan started to laugh. I still simply take pictures of anything now. You may also laugh back. If your boss heard what you said, she would be very angry. We have arrived. It is here. She stopped walking and took out the keys to open the door. Mushan also stopped for a moment and followed her inside. Yichen's home was located on the 12th floor of a premium residential area in the western side of the city. The house was very big, but looked very empty. There were no unnecessary things, but only a few open magazines on the coffee table, which made it look like someone was staying here. In recent years, everyone is busy, so we only occasionally get together. Yi Mei talked while packing his things. When she opened the refrigerator, she helplessly shook her head. There's really nothing inside. He's probably the most incapable person to take care of himself in the world. The last time I came, I actually saw him eating instant noodle. That was the last straw, so I dragged him to the supermarket. Yichen had always been like this. How would Mushan not know? He always had something even more important to do than eating. The only way to deal with this kind of people would be, you don't eat, I also won't eat. Ah, yes, Yi Mei suddenly said. I'm getting married soon. Do you know? The groom is my supervisor. The story is like Cinderella. Mushan was stunned and stared at her. You are getting married? Yes, I'm getting married. She smiled, nodded, and limit. In the past, I was arrogant to say those words to you. Afterward, I only found out that there are things we cannot fight for. Regarding Yichen, I have long given up hope. Why? Probably because I cannot wait as long as him. He can continue to wait year after year in an almost hopeless situation, whereas I cannot. Yi Mei was silent for a moment and then said, About 3 or 4 years ago, when Yichen won a big case, I went to celebrate with a few of his colleagues. He was drunk, so I sent him back. When I helped him to clean up his vomit, he suddenly hugged me and kept asking, Why won't you come back? I'm prepared to abandon everything. Why do you still refuse to come back? Yi Mei paused with a bitter smile. If those words were not enough to let me give up, you come with me. She took Mushan into the study room, simply picked out a book and turned into a certain page and handed it to her. This is something I've stumbled upon, and it's only not in this book. Mushan stared at the poem written messily on the page of the book. From the illegible handwriting, it was possible to imagine that the mood of the person at the time of writing must be very irritable and dejected. After the book was closed, she no longer paid attention to what Yi Mei was still saying. In her mind, the mellowness and the laughing voice of a young girl seemed to travel from a distant time and space. Yichen, you still do not know my name? I'm called Zhao Mosheng. Mu means silent, and shen is a type of musical instrument, free reed mouth organ with a wooden pipe stuck into the ground. My name even has an origin. It comes from Susumen's poem. Quietness is my farewell music, for Cambridge tonight is silent. When we were young, Yichen's mother often carried me and said it would be good if she had a daughter, while my mother beside her would say, "Do you want to exchange the two kids?" From young, Yichen had always been smart and sensible. My mother probably likes him more than me. On the way back to the hospital, Yimei talked about the past events. Until now, I can still remember how Auntie looked like, unfortunately. How did his parent die? Yimei shook her head and said, I don't remember, since I was only 9 years old at that time. I think it was an accident. Uncle slipped and fell from the 4th floor. Auntie's health was also poor, so due to excessive grieving, she also passed away not long after. Yimei seemed to have thought of something, paused for a while, and then said, I heard my mom unintentionally mention it once that after Auntie's death, it was found she did not take the medicine in the drawers that she needed to take. Hence, it can be considered suicide. A suicide? Mushan was astounded. At that time, Yichen was only 10 years old, so how could she have had the heart to do it? Yimei nodded her head. Auntie probably loved Uncle very much. She seemed to be thinking and continued to talk. Actually, Yichen is very similar to Auntie. While talking, they reached the hospital. They met the nurse who knew Yimei. At the hallway, she kindly said to her, Your boyfriend just changed his IV and is sleeping again. Yimei thanked her and explained smiling, He is my brother. When they were at the door, Yimei suddenly gave everything in her hand to Mushan. You take them, so I won't go in. There were not many things, yet Mushan felt those things in her hands were too heavy for her to hold. Mushan, Yimei said, I did not lose to you, but I lost to him. Mushan saw her gradually walking away, but she was unable to say anything to make her stay.